It's 1:04. I'm calling this meeting to order. It's the Public Higher Education Study Committee, an organizational meeting. And we can start with the introductions.
Senator Tim Lang.
And I'm Bruce Ward.
I'm Rick Blatt. Wayne Burke.
Welcome. So the first item we have to do is to select the clerk. So who wants to take notes? Do we all take them?
Where's your administrative assistant?
Can we
We
get,
don't have one.
Hmm?
We don't have one.
You have assistants for all kinds of stuff over here.
Well, there are sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. I asked them specifically and it has not been asked to do it, so we don't have a legislative aide taking notes.
I'll do it.
We'll take the notes for today, okay? Senator Lang will take the notes for today. And to review, the scope of the committee is an act establishing a committee to study payments in lieu of taxes for university system properties and certain state government operations which function as businesses open to the public, and establishing a university system study committee. So this is the study committee. When do we have to elect a chair?
no, the chair is you.
I'm okay with that.
It rotates every 2 years to
Oh,
the chair
so
of the
it's
education
automatic,
chair.
we don't have to vote it in?
Of Senate. Education.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Perfect. All you, Ruth.
So we have presentations. Catherine Provencher, Chancellor, are you ready to come up? Do you want to do it together with Chancellor Rubenstein?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Catherine Provencher. I serve as the Chancellor of our state's university system.
Madam Chair, Mark Rubenstein, privileged to serve as Chancellor of the Community College System.
Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, looking forward to what you have to tell us.
As background, well, the Public Higher Ed Study Committee,
Could you put the mic a little closer to you?
of course.
Thanks.
Is that okay? Obviously, the Public Higher Ed Study Committee has been around for a long time, and both systems work collaboratively with the Public Higher Ed Study Committee on legislative matters, and take cue from your committee, as well as at times provide possible agenda items that the committee may want to consider. Most recently, Governor Sununu formed a task force for the two, actually, we're probably 20 plus people on the task force to look at ways that the two systems of public higher education in our state could better collaborate. And the task force issued its report in March of 24. There was then enacted an amendment to statute, amendment to RSA 187A, requiring that the two systems provide periodic reports to this committee, as well as an annual report on the status of implementation of various recommendations that were in that task force report. So the Chancellor and I provided to Aaron Jones middle of last week the actual task force report that was issued by the task force in March of 24, as well as the annual report that we issued in November. And apologies for delayed delivery. We provided to Aaron Friday evening a more recent status report that's dated February 28th, and that is in front of you, and we're happy to talk through that. I don't know if the Chancellor has any.
Thank you, Chancellor Provencher. I would like to draw attention from the committee to the Director Appleby, Department of Education, who chaired the task force created by Governor Sununu, and would also add that the report included about 40 recommendations, some short-term, some long-term, some that were operational in nature, some that are more student-facing, and then some that are much larger policy issues. And What we've been able to pursue in the short time since that report was completed are the things that are more accessible to the two institutions to work on operationally. We think that there's still a lot of opportunity from that report on some of the recommendations that are more substantial in terms of what might be done with alignment of the state's economic development activities with public higher education.
As a point of clarification here, my understanding is, as we wrote the amending language of 1450, that the chancellors of both systems would present to us a quarterly report on the status of where we are with those recommendations. So it's just not as needed, but it read addressing higher education alignment outcomes to the public higher education study committee, beginning with the calendar quarter ending June 30th, 2024. And it goes on, or prior to that, it said, shall submit joint quarterly reports. So it's my understanding that, we would also receive the quarterly report that we, at the end of the year, or wherever we are, we're coming up on another quarterly report.
Yes, thank you, Representative. I believe that, correct?
Turn on your mic, please.
Sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the law states the quarterly reports are as requested by the committee.
Yeah.
And I believe in December, could be getting this wrong, maybe it was early January, you were the chair at the time of this committee, and we communicated about, we had just done the annual report. And so was another quarterly report necessary?
And we said the annual report would suffice. I'm just not complaining or anything about the reports. I'm just saying that it's 4 quarters per year, or if we request to skip one, we could do that. But it's up to this committee to decide how to handle it. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Yeah.
We the chancellor and I worked on this status report because we knew this committee was having its organizational meeting and wanted to provide you with an update of the work that we've done since the annual report was filed.
That'd be appreciated.
I just received these things when I came in this morning, so I have not had a chance to look through everything else. But the 40 points that you said that you have recognized, was that be in that report, in this report here? Okay.
Yes, and broken into short-term recommendations and long-term recommendations.
Okay. And in this update, you're telling about what you have done to date, what you have been able to accomplish out of those 40 to date.
Yes, the again, the annual report that's dated late October, late October,
October 28th.
provides more detail, but the chancellor and I are happy to walk through some recent updates for the report that's dated February 28th.
So can you just walk through the 7 instances you have on this February 28th report? So it's for the record, so people can see it and understand what we're talking about. 'Cause while I have this paper, not everybody listening does.
Absolutely.
I'll start with the first recommendation, and these were not in order. These are just the order in which we prioritized to pursue them. Enhance and expand CCS&H's early college dual enrollment initiatives to give students a compelling pathway to post-secondary education by reducing cost and debt burden. Early college is an opportunity for high school students, grades 10, 11, and 12, to enroll in college-level courses, either in their high schools, on our campuses, or online. The opportunity is to challenge themselves academically and to earn both credit towards satisfying high school graduation requirements and also college credit requirements toward completing a college degree. the benefit to students and families on a purely financial basis is significant. The state in the last biennium provided $2.5 million for scholarships to underwrite the cost of these courses. And in early college, these courses are offered at $150 a course, which for a 3 or 4 credit course on our campuses would be somewhere between $645 and $860. So significant savings to students and families, made more so by the investment of the state. Last year, New Hampshire high school students enrolled in 54,000 credits, which if they had done that on our campuses would have cost at least $13 million. That's largely covered by the $2.5 million from the state. So in essence, a 5-to-1 return on that investment. Most of these students are just taking 1 or 2 courses. And over time, again, if they subsequently enroll at a college 4-year institution where you pay by the semester, this may not amount to much. But our objective is to actually build these into pathways so that the sets of courses students take, whether it's 4 or 8 or 12 or 16 over time, actually represent a semester or a year or even the complete associate degree for students who are ambitious and motivated, so that students and families can see significant savings, significant avoidance of debt. We've been trying to build these with House Bill 1530 in mind, which was a legislative mandate for the university system, community college system to work better together to ensure that students had clear pathways, how coursework at our institution fit into degree programs in the university system, so that students would have a pathway that was well-defined and contribute to that, both incentive to continue and affordability for doing that. Over time, with growth in this program, we think that we can help more students and families complete degrees that are meaningful to them, aligned with New Hampshire's workforce need. And because New Hampshire has always been, or long been, one of the leading exporters of college-bound students leaving this state to pursue college in other states, we think that given enough opportunity to strengthen these pathways, we can give students reason and incentive to stay in New Hampshire, both for the 2-year degree that we offer and the 4-year degrees that the university system offers. So we think there's a lot of benefit to this. Last year, with the state support, enrollment in early college grew by 16%, 30% on campus, about 14% in the high schools. So significant growth year over year. This year, funding is continuing, same level as last year. We've seen an additional 8% growth this fall, and we expect that we'll see continued growth into the future with continued support from the state. I should mention also that about 30% of this enrollment activity in high schools is happening with CTE, Career Technical Education Centers. So high schools that are closely aligned in delivering programs that match many of our skilled technical associate degree and certificate programs.
The second item on the bottom of page 2, there was a recommendation made by the task force relative to simplifying the admissions processes between the two systems. And again, as the chancellor mentioned, there have been 100 pathways, 100 transfer pathways put into place between the two systems, but we're also looking into we're doing a direct admit program between the community college system and the university system. So if you are graduating with an associate's degree from the community college system, you will automatically be admitted, if you meet the GPA, et cetera, automatically admitted to the university system. And I believe this month, community college system will provide information to the university system so that we can reach out to those students and say, congratulations on completing your degree at the community college system. Please know you're automatically enrolled. And that's part of the direct admit process. We're also working on, we're also working on direct admit with high schools. That hasn't been rolled out just yet. There are some statutory issues relative to sharing data, but the two systems are also working on a direct admit program with the high schools So if you meet eligibility criteria, you'd get a communication from the community college system and/or the university system. Congratulations on finishing your high school degree. You're automatically enrolled in a public higher ed institution here in New Hampshire. So a lot of forward movement in that area. Right?
I'd like to stay on this one just for a second or two. And 3 months ago, we were talking about the communication directly to the juniors in high school. Hey, you graduate and you have this point average or whatever, you're come on board. You can come to Keene, Plymouth, or UNH. But we also recognize there was a hang up on acquisition of the addresses and that of students. Have we not yet gone, is that not resolved with the DOE at this point in time, or the schools themselves? Why are we now, putting this thing off longer and longer?
It's not 100% resolved, Representative Ladd. I don't know.
I was able, I believe, with assistance from Director Appleby, to connect with a colleague in the Department of Education to at least begin to explore this. As noted in the report, between our early college programs and names that can be acquired through the College Board, students who take the SAT, we have a significant portion of the secondary school population that we could reach out to, but it's not a complete outline, it's not a complete census of that population. It's more students who have self-selected in one way or another. So our interest would be able to more even-handedly and consistently and systematically reach the additional 20 or 25% who are on the sidelines, not because everybody necessarily needs or is going to pursue a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree, but we think that there's probably a range of opportunities, whether it's skills-based workforce training, some are microelectronics boot camps, other kinds of very targeted programs that provide pathways to good opportunities that we could introduce people to. So we are hoping that there's a more systematic, universal opportunity out there.
Can I follow up?
Follow up.
Thank you. Chancellor Rubenstein, one of the things we were discussing is that we know that we have X number of kids that are graduating from high school. We have X number of students in junior high, or juniors in high school. Why is it that we can't at least get some part of this program going by communicating with the counselors in these schools or the principals in these schools and saying, hey, here are the cards, hand them out at least to your students, so they are aware that they have this opportunity to go right on to post-secondary education?
I think it's fair to say that both of our systems, we have colleagues who are in high schools throughout the state, speaking with counselors, speaking with students that we can reach. Where we have a gap is being able to communicate with families, with parents who may have interest in understanding what those opportunities are, who may be influential in helping to shape the opportunities their students investigate.
I'll also add, Representative Ladd, that of course the name of it is going to escape me, but there is an app or a tool that many, if not most, high school juniors and seniors use for college admissions. And Keene, Plymouth, and UNH are all on that platform for direct admit for New Hampshire students. So if you meet the eligibility criteria, you click through in the app and you are directly admitted. And I can absolutely get more information on that. I think that would be helpful to understand. But that was rolled out, I think, 6 or 9 months ago.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had extensive experience with this as president in Massachusetts. My question is, do the students taking the courses get a transcript from your school?
As students receive an official transcript from the institution, if it happens to be a student at Concord High School, the transcript would be issued by NHTI. If it happens to be Oyster River, it would be issued by Great Bay.
Follow?
Follow up.
Have you done any research on how the students are doing now that you have some experience with them? I had some experience with the high school sending the students they didn't want And I caught a couple doing that because you hopefully, they, literally, you can admit them on the spot because all they have to do is produce the high school transcript when they graduate, right? So have you done any research on how these students are doing now?
Yeah, we've actually done fairly extensive research looking at about 35,000 students who participated in early college from 2016 through 2022, so that we'd have the additional 2 years to see what happens afterwards. We know that about 83% of these students go on to post-secondary education. We know that about 6,000 of them enroll in the community college system, about 6,600 enrolled in the university system, 11,000 all told enrolled in New Hampshire, about 14,000 left the state for post-secondary opportunities. Now, there's some overlap in those groups because students enroll at one place, then transfer to another. But we know that these students have tended to be successful in completing degrees. Our goal is to have more of these students succeed in completing degrees here in New Hampshire and doing it in less costly ways that don't put the financial pressure on them that many college graduates experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Lang.
Thank you. So, Mr. Appleby, I'm going to drag you into this conversation now. So is the issue is a statutory problem that says that you don't have access to the student data that's necessary in order to provide the letters and saying, hey, you're on target to graduate, you have the right GPA, you're automatically admitted into NHTI or the university college system. Please contact us to pursue this. Is there a problem with getting that data and it needs a statutory fix? Or is that something that they can do by sending a letter for you so we don't have to deal with them giving personal data to the university system or the community college system?
I think that would be ideal for the Department of Education to do it. I defer to Director Appleby. I believe, in fact, there are some limitations on what the Department of Education is able to communicate to students and families. Mhm.
So if you-
Thank you. Steve Appleby, Department of Education. My understanding, this is not my area in the department. We actually have a meeting, the Vice Chancellor and the Director, myself, and one of my other fellow directors as well this week, next week. It's coming right up to look at this issue. But my understanding is some of the issues are contract with College Board or whoever the test provider is that we get this info from. That we can't take that info that we have access to and give it out. I believe that's the issue. So we're meeting, it's either this week or next, to see what we need to do to go back to the vendor to modify the contract so we can then use that data, whether it's us sending something out or sharing that information with the systems.
So, and this is the app that someone was just talking about, that you're talking about? What is the?
No, that's a different, so that's probably Naviance. Is that it? The app? So yeah, so a lot of our high schools use a post-secondary planning tool. For my kids, it was Naviance was the name of the company. And colleges put in, information into this, other post-secondary opportunity information goes into this. And students then access that to try and figure out what do they want to do next in life. So it augments the high school guidance counselors.
So again, and maybe this is a question to Rick and Ruth, but it's the whole point of what we're trying to do is make sure in-state students stay in state, right? So we have to get directly and let them know early on that you have direct admission already to the community college system, or what is needed to make that work? Again, not every student is already thinking about college. They may not be using the application, thinking about their post-secondary, where they're going to go to college, right? But getting a letter will spur that conversation, spur that thought, especially like, I'm already admitted, I could just go find out and go, right? And so what is the limitation to making that happen?
Yeah, I think the limitation on our end is who can we share data with? And is it contractual that's holding us back? Is it state statute that's holding us back? Who can we share contact information with? Which But
I
again,
guess that's the information I want to know, right? Again,
Yeah.
if it's a statutory problem, I want to fix it, right? And get the data. The goal is, again, to encourage as many New Hampshire students to stay in New Hampshire and attend New Hampshire colleges, right? And so if that's the purpose, then let's get the law out of the way if the law is the problem and solve it so that we can get these letters out to our juniors and seniors and get them know that UNH is an option, PSU is an option, Keene State's an option, the community college system is an option. Let them know, like, you're already admitted. Just click the link and fill out whatever, where you want to, what you want to do, kind of thing. So I guess just want to know where that problem is. So I guess that's going to be my first ask is let's get that data back to us so we know where the problem is and in facilitating it.
I'll get that answer back to you. Absolutely.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, yes, I do, Madam Chair. Yes, we had this problem when we were dealing with the College Board in the past of accessing the parents' information so they could send the SAT scores directly to the parent rather than having them come back to the school to the parent. That delayed the whole process. That took statutory change to allow that to occur. Senator Lang is correct. It wouldn't take much of a legislative fix to fix that portion, but I don't think this is the problem with what we're talking about. I think the problem is that here we are now in the month of March, and we have students right now that are starting to think college as juniors and looking to put families together as far as family trips. What ones are we going to go visit? What are we going to see? What are you thinking about doing with your life thereafter high school? And so I just can't understand why we can't get information out directly to the schools regarding, hey, we have this direct admission program. Come visit us, or look at our campus down in Keene or Plymouth or UNH. Think about us as in-state. We can help you out, and have those counselors or the schools get at least a postcard to the kids right now, if in fact we can't direct mail to the address of the student, and that needs to be worked out so we can do that.
I just don't want to be here next March to have the same conversation. So that's all. So let's get it fixed. Let's find out what's necessary. Again, if it's statutory, we'll work through that. But I think, again, to Rick's point, kids should have, students should have a letter in their mailbox right now saying, hey, you've already been admitted to UNH. You've already been admitted in HTI, assuming you keep your course going, your academic progress going. So reach out. Let's go. Let's move this, right? And let them know right off the bat. I just don't want to be back here in March and doing this again.
Switch to chairs.
Madam,
Go ahead.
just a quick comment. Maybe the public schools aren't as enthusiastic about losing students as we think they might be. But the other thing I wanted to mention, when we had this, I was president of North Shore Community College for 13 years. We picked up students under this program who are having trouble adapting to the public school environment, including students on IEPs. Because I had a massive, students on IEPs hit a wall when they graduate from high school. And so they would show up in this crowd and flourish because they were in a different environment, in a class with adults, not other teenagers that might make fun of them. And that was a big advantage of the program as well. I can't answer Chairman Ladd's question about that, but I'm wondering if there's something else going on. Why wouldn't they want their students to go in this program? You were a superintendent once, didn't you?
I can't imagine any kind of a high school principal or administrator in a district saying, we don't want to do this. I think it's just basically, have those cards been sent out? Are they aware that this program is available? They should know it as juniors. Right now, I have a junior outside the state in another school, and we're already thinking about, we got the Fisk book out, the one with all the different colleges, Best Buy, this and that. We're looking at that and saying, well, where are we going to go this spring or this summer and start looking at these schools? And for the students, we talked, one of the other areas which we addressed within this task force report was affordability and accessibility. Well, the schools here in our state are accessible. And if we can let them know that there's some affordability issues like Granite Guarantee, which might be also informative information for these juniors, that, yeah, you can stay right here and go down to Keene and have a wonderful education.
Number 3.
I just want to say, we're on it. We'll circle back. The one thing I will point out, though, is, in my opinion, we don't just want to focus on the College Board, because those are students who are taking the SAT. There are lots of other students who, and we talk a little bit about this in the report. Right now, because there is this disconnect, we can get the data about the College Board, but we're going to be a little inconsistent until we can have a process in place to make sure we can get to all students, regardless of whether or not they take the SAT.
So this is the gap, and I think Director Appleby was touching upon it with the contractual relationship with the College Board. Student can sign up to take the SAT, and some students do. But the state also has contracted with the College Board to do assessment, and so virtually every 11th grader. And it's that gap between the students who independently sign up, where we can reach out to the College Board and in essence pay for information about those students to reach them, and that group of students who have not independently signed up for the SAT, whose only information would be through the College Board. But again, we're present in every high school in the state. We can reach the students who will come to the table and sit down with us, but to be able to reach every student, every family, and as I said before, not everybody needs or is interested in going to college, but the kind of college level learning that a student can have through our programs gives them a foundation. If they want to go into the military, some foundational training that may be helpful for a specialty that they want to pursue. It just has a range of benefits that encourage students who may not be confident that they have the potential to be successful. As Representative Burton said, some students find themselves thriving in a different set of circumstances. We want to give students that range of options. To number 3, I think both Chancellor Provencher and I have both referenced in the first two, House Bill 1530. We ought to note the key sponsor, and that was Representative Ladd. That became the foundation for a significant amount of work that continues building well-articulated pathways between the community college systems programs and the university systems programs, giving students roadmaps now across 100 different programs that map from virtually any of our 7 colleges to any of the 3 USNH institutions that ensure that students have a way of mapping their future, not squandering time and opportunity and cost.
And in that vein, academic advisors have been trained. We have we call it an outreach enrollment center. It's half a dozen people at the university system, works on a whole variety of projects, but phone calls, texts, emails to stay connected to students. And so that group is being leveraged to stay in contact with these students who may have questions, point them in the right direction, make folks aware of what those opportunities are.
There was one question we had on that, with the application of software tests, transfer something system. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
Transfer equivalency system.
Okay, so have we made any progress with that in terms of these 100+ different pathways now that we've really aligned up?
We have made some progress. UNH is standing up tests, I think, and correct me if I get these wrong, because there's another one called Transferology that we're still evaluating. But TESS is the transfer equivalency, and we are making progress on that.
And CCSNH began to pilot tests at National Community College. We're in the process of filling a position for somebody who will have responsibility for doing that, delivering that system-wide.
Senator Lang?
Thank you. So again, to tie this back to our last conversation, right, we were just talking about the matriculation of students rolling in, whether it's a high school student rolling into the community college system or the university system, or the community college system rolling into the 4-year university system. Again, have we made alignments and our students like, hey, you just graduated a 2-year RN degree. If you want to go on to the university system, here's all the 4-year RN degrees you could get in the schools that provide it. That kind of mapping to show that here's what I got in community college. My associates was in this, and that'll all transfer to the college system. Here's the programs and the schools that offer those programs. So we have that kind of mapping, so it's unique to the student. Again, if I'm a nursing student, I don't really want anything about engineering, right? And so telling me that university system has an engineering program is not going to be useful to me, but you tell me they've got more healthcare programs that my community college degree will transfer into. Are we doing any of that?
We're partway there. If you go to the UNH website for transfer, what you'll find is a map for any program that you're interested in will take you to the institution's degree program, show you how your CCSNH associate degree aligns with the course requirements to complete the bachelor's degrees. It shows up as a PDF, which is a little bit less dynamic than you would ideally want. So the next phase of this is to have something that's more interactive where a student can do almost what if scenarios. What if I take these courses? What choices will I have, as opposed to having to sort of map from a particular degree at a particular institution. The long-term goal is that a student would be able to put together a series of scenarios to know that this set of courses could take me this way or it could take me this way. Keep in mind, general education course is going to be widely fluid. But if you're interested in a science, technology, engineering, math field, which math courses are going to be relevant, which ones are going to become electives that may or may not be useful. So to give students more tools, more interactive tools to map is the next phase of this that we've got to get to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. As we discuss this, it just becomes more interesting to me that we have the concurrent dual enrollment program where the kid can take so many courses in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. When a student ends up having taken, you take, let's say, 6 credit hours during 1 year, so multiply that by 3, there's 18 credits. When you're notifying them that, hey, you have the option to come have direct enrollment and admission to this school, but you also are carrying 18 credits, you might be almost a second semester freshman. That's also encouraging to somebody to stay in a state. And the question I have, how many of these kids are using these courses they get through Running Start to come to New Hampshire, or are they just carrying that load somewhere else to go to school, like UMass?
As I shared earlier, we know that over an extended period of time, we've had 6,000 of the 35,000 come to CCSNH and about 6,600 enroll at USNH. In any given year, about 10% of the recent high school graduates come directly to CCSNH. Over the next 4 years, we actually see almost 1 in 5 of those students, whether they started somewhere else or they simply took longer before they matriculated. But we know that students are making use, and that all predates having these solid pathways. The assumption is that, and it needs to be tested, but the assumption is that if we do a better job of building pathways, and not just the courses, but building experience for students, the opportunity to come and visit our campuses, to meet with our faculty, to see the facilities that we have, the university system has, that over the course of those 2 or 3 years where they're taking these early college courses, we can cultivate relationships that encourage the likelihood that they will follow through on the opportunity.
May I follow
up?
Love this conversation. So the students which are taking advantage of the concurrent dual enrollment program, I would probably surmise that many of them are doing it because mom or dad push them, or that there's a support for higher education within that family. We need to really be targeting, as you've mentioned before, Mark, to me, that these kids which maybe didn't have any intention of going to school or maybe not coming out of a family like that, are you seeing a higher proportion of an improving proportion of students which are now taking advantage of that, which are going to higher ed, which before hadn't?
It's going to take time to fully realize what the potential is. We assume that the majority of students who had been doing this in the past were the students who would either take an AP or an honors course, or in this case, an early college course. They already had intended to go to college. Their families already have a plan. As this begins to grow, and particularly the place where it's grown most notably over the last few years, as I mentioned earlier, about 30% of the students participating are enrolled in CTE centers. 3 years ago, that was less than 15%. We're starting to see growth in participation among students who are in programs that better align with some of our technical programs, who might not have fully appreciated that there's a post-secondary degree aligned with their career interests that will actually strengthen their position in New Hampshire's workforce. So we are starting to see students who probably in the past would not have been looking at this as an opportunity beyond high school.
I have a question on the possibility of a 3-year bachelor degree.
Sure.
I see that you're now requiring 96 credits. How many credits for a 4-year degree?
120.
How many?
120.
120. So that's significantly less. What is eliminated from a 3-year program, from a 4-year program to manage a 3-year program?
This will be considered a professional bachelor's degree. I think that's the terminology. Some electives may be eliminated. Actually, Plymouth will have all 5 of these stood up this fall. And, maybe it's applied bachelor's degree, not professional. And so some electives will be not part of the degree. Senator, I don't know exactly for each of those 5 programs, which courses will not be part of the degree. But again, I will surmise it's and I can get that for you if it would be helpful. And these were just approved by our regional accrediting board, NECHI, in the fall. There are other institutions around the country that have adopted the same type of applied bachelor's degree. It's really part of meeting students where they are. And as Chancellor Rubenstein talked about, the opportunities for a high school student to almost complete an associate's degree, some may embrace that, some may not. It's again, part of meeting our students where they are.
So Plymouth is the only one so far.
The only one so far is Plymouth.
Okay.
That's right. They and actually when I touched base with them late last week, they've accepted, the deposits aren't due yet. So we have some deposits in, but I probably wouldn't pay my deposit in advance. They've accepted 149 applicants into those 5 programs so far, and 95 of those are the business administration applied bachelor's degree.
I'm just thinking right now there's a big need for teachers, for example. Would that fit in eventually into a 3-year program?
I'm going to surmise we would need to work with the Department of Education, right? Because there's certifications, and so I don't know all of the requirements necessary to be a certified teacher in the state.
I can add a little bit to that, seeing I've gone through that with those. There's certain internship programs, student teaching that's required. It's a very comprehensive process. And so at this point in time, I would suggest that we look at these trade areas like the cybersecurity, like the police training program, the robotics, the outdoor recreation. Those are the type of programs which I know President Burks looked into with his community and with his staff. It's important to know that these programs are not just coming out of administration. They've been approved by their staff and professors and assistant professors and adjuncts that are teaching these courses. They're all on board, and that makes the program successful.
Well, there must have been a survey which programs have the highest need.
Yes, and they worked with their provost, Mr. Bodic up there, who has done survey work with his staff, with the community, and I think that's how they arrived at where they're going to go with these 5 courses. And I think it's a fantastic idea, because it also hits the idea of affordability.
Yep.
And gets the students out into the real world to learn that $1 is $1.
And perhaps the student who Representative Ladd suggested had accumulated 18 credits in high school, most of them may be able to transfer to the three-year college, unless they're taking a lot of electives.
Agreed, and again, it would be part of the pathway, right? These courses in the early college will map to these programs, these degrees at respective institutions.
Again, I'm encouraged by this, right? I understand you gotta walk, you gotta crawl before you walk, right? And I think we're still in the crawling stage. We have the first 5 degree programs at one university. I'm sure Keene, as it looks at its opportunities, will be looking at opportunities, UNH, same thing. And each have their own little specialties and might have different 3-year programs. So I think this is great work and a great start to it. I might go think about taking my 3-year police studies program up at PSU, so I'll go have a chat with
They'll hire you back in Anchorage.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Well, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. There is a huge audience out there of partially completed college students. And you can get the data from there's a loan file. And if they get a letter saying you've earned 20 credits so far, did you know if you come to the community college or a 4-year school in New Hampshire, you can complete that degree and get your degree and get the ticket that you need. Some states are doing that extensively, I know.
Yes, I'm gonna back up to number 4 because I'm really excited about it. The University System Office is relocating to the New Hampshire Technical Institute campus. We'll be occupying the building right behind Chancellor Rubenstein on the campus. I'm confident that we already spend quite a bit of quality time together, but I'm sure this will improve collaboration. We're scheduled to move it. Construction's underway right now to get the building ready, and we will be in there by July. So it will save the university system about $250,000 a year in rent and provide a revenue stream to the community college system at the same time. So in my opinion, it's a win-win all around to occupy a building on the community college, on the NHTI campus that was underutilized. So
I think it's also worth noting, that's a clear physical symbol, but the conversations Chancellor Provencher and I and our respective colleagues have been having about other opportunities for administrative collaboration are continuing to grow. And I think we'll both recognize savings from those efforts, but also more seamless interaction between the two systems that will benefit our students over time.
and just following up on the Chancellor's comments, there have been a number of administrative collaborations. So the university system has an e-procurement tool, IT application that it uses. We were able to secure, I think, 3 seats in that tool for the community college system free of charge. So now the community college system, we can leverage scale, give CCS&H access to our contracts, vice versa. The next wave of that might be some better collaboration into the contracts management tool that's part of it. So that's one example. We're having conversations around, can we share risk management resources? Can we share facilities and capital? Anything. Again, both systems, we have some headwinds. And so we need to be looking for efficiency at every turn. Mm-hmm. And so it's, this work has just provided the platform for the two systems to work closely together.
So the two systems are sufficiently similar so that the staff won't be confused? Can you actually share the same personnel?
Well, in some areas,
Okay.
certainly not all, in some areas. So let's talk about, when I say risk management, well, both systems have to have insurance on their buildings. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's a resource that we don't need 2 full-time people. Maybe, I don't know. We can work out something that one system could pay the other system for part of that employees' time, if you will. Same thing with capital planning and facilities. Is there something there that we can leverage? So those are things we're exploring. Sometimes it's a dead end, but it's worth asking one another the question.
Okay,
Can I have
Number 6.
another question on
Yeah.
5 or 4?
for both of you, several years back, we were informed that there was a program that was offered down at UNH in Durham that they were going to move up to Plymouth State. I believe it was the athletic training program. And I think that's a good idea to be looking at our curriculum and our offerings that way. Seeing that, rather than having something split apart, bring it together. In terms of what we've been just talking about from your side, in terms of managing contracts and business aspects and all that, are we now starting to engage in when a school like, for example, Plymouth came out and said, well, we're going to go in these 5 small 3-year courses. If say Keene or UNH is saying, we're going to go this direction, is there any kind of, prior to going that direction, there's a communication with the central office of both, right here at the chancellor's level saying, wait a minute, we're starting to duplicate a program we have over here, and that's going to, split little revenue that we have going the directions, maybe we better putting it all in one pot.
Yes, Representative Ladd, absolutely. That is part of the process. Our provosts meet monthly, and before any new programs are rolled out, there is conversation. This just happened within the last couple months. There's conversation around, I want to start this program. What's at your school? What's at your school? Now, the real bang for the buck will come when our online infrastructure system-wide is humming at 100%, because what we need to be able to do is have a student maybe they're living and studying at UNH, and that course isn't offered there because they've eliminated the athletic training program, but they have it at Plymouth. So that we're working on that right now. University system understands 100%. We can't do everything we're doing now. It doesn't work. So how do we best leverage and integrate academic programming, not just administrative work, but academic programming as well? And our provosts are working on that as we speak.
Can we have, this is one of our long-term recommendations we have in the Governor's Task Force report. And it talks about offering community college courses and university courses at different locations. And is there, and it sort of aligns with what we just finished talking about, of trying to, offer at his campus the course, which is actually mainstreamed over here at that course. But I think that's a real cost saving to the student. Do you have any kind of information on how we're moving in that direction as far as the number of courses we're actually trying to do this now?
I don't have details on the
Yeah.
number of courses, Representative Ladd. I will guess in the next few months, we will have details on courses. As I said, the provosts are working through this question right now.
Mhm.
We know that's where we have to go.
I hope so. That's where one of the reasons why we hired the president down at UNH. She is very involved in what she did out in Washington in that state college system of bringing them under one accreditation, which I think you're aiming at, Mark, a little bit with the community college system with single accreditation.
That's a perfect lead.
And Chancellor Preventure just said a perfect lead into the 6th item. We began last year to evaluate the opportunity for single accreditation. Regional accreditation is a single statewide community college. It's a substantial and complicated decision. We didn't want to ask our board to rush into that. So we've spent the better part of the last year working with the National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, asking them to do an objective analysis, data informed, and to develop a set of options for us. We're expecting to receive a report this week. We expect that our board will receive it this week, and we'll share it widely with the legislature, with other stakeholders over the next few months to evaluate what makes sense. One option is single accreditation, and to some degree, it has the potential to address some of the issues that you just raised, the efficiency, removing some of the intra-system competition that may exist for enrollment in certain programs, allowing students to more seamlessly navigate and take courses where it makes sense to them, particularly for our population, which rather than often living on campus on a residential, for a residential institution, our students are working adults by and large. They may be working in Nashua, but they may live in Concord, or they may live in Littleton, but they may have a job that takes them to Laconia. So the ability for students to participate in curriculum where it makes sense, but not to lose ground because those pieces fit together, would be one potential benefit of single accreditation. When we receive the report, I anticipate, though, that we're going to see a range of options, some of which may be addressed not by changing accreditation, but by changing institutional and system policies that allow students to get those same benefits without as much structural upheaval. Right now, as you might know, the national landscape in higher education is complicated. And regional accreditation is an area of perhaps some uncertainty. So at least one part of the consideration is how much energy to put into addressing regional accreditation when that landscape is fluid and that effort may not be as sensible. But we are committed to looking at options that allow us to better serve students and to find efficiencies are certainly part of it. But as I've said in other settings, I think post-secondary education is growth industry, that there's going to be more demand for people to continue education over the 40 or 50 years of a working life. And we've got to figure out how to reallocate our resource and our energy to support that growth, not simply think about the contraction of the traditional age demographic. So we would expect that within the next week or so, we'll have a report that will go first to our board and then be circulated across our system and beyond. And we expect that'll be the basis for discussions and deliberations over the next couple of months to see if we can map out what the next step is for the community college system. Those of you who've served in the legislature for any length of time know that you don't make a single decisive decision and that's it for the future. You make the right decision for the foreseeable future, knowing that you will at some point perhaps revisit it to either sustain that direction or modify as circumstances and data dictate.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Go ahead.
Just one observation. Through all of this, we have to keep our eye on quality. What's happening at different levels and so forth. I happened to be in the legislature when the system was formed, and John Tucker was speaker. He was a Plymouth State graduate, proud, and he was worried about the image of the university and the flagship and 2 tugboats. So he had the vision for the system, and it was first out at the Lee Traffic Circle, and the president of UNH was the chancellor of the system, all 3 schools. And it was an interesting experience, but this is a natural now step forward to systematize it, small s, and to link things together. But I've been through this before, and you got to keep your eye on quality. What's happening? What distinguishes what happens at a college or university from a secondary school? And there are differences. So that's my.
So where are we in the agenda here? How much have you covered? They have them number 7 left, right?
Yeah, there was just one other item.
We talked about 6?
We talked, yes, the Chancellor Rubenstein just talked about 6. The seventh item, there's a recommendation in the task force report that talks about engaging with business communities across the state to build partnerships with business, industry, public higher ed, even K-12. And we stand ready to participate in that. However, frankly, it can't fall on public higher ed, right? Working with business and industry needs to engage. So the chancellor and I will reach out to Taylor Caswell, the Department of Economic Affairs. We think there are regional, the acronym is CEDARS. There are regional economic development organizations across the state. I believe that would be the place to start, to engage, bring higher ed to the table, so that there's more communication back and forth between the needs of employers and higher ed. So we just want, that item hadn't been included in previous reports, our status reports, and we both thought it important to include that. We want to start that work. We haven't started that work, but really, in my opinion, BEA needs to help drive that.
Because I think for students to have an opportunity for an internship is always very, very exciting for them because they can actually see what the real life is and what they can do. And also maybe prevent them from continuing if they realize that this is not what they want to do.
Right, oh, 100%. And across the university system, we are plugged in to employers through internship programs. I think a lot of this is also about looking forward and thinking about what does business and industry and our employers, what does curriculum need to look like in the future? How do we plan for that together? All of those things with internships, mentorships, certificate programs. It doesn't even have to be degree programs, right? What does business and industry need, and how do we deliver on that? And that to really have a partnership well into the future.
Do you expect problems lining up enough internships or experiences in the actual industry?
Well, much of the time what we find with internships is out-of-state students who participate in an internship are twice as likely to stay and work here in New Hampshire. The tough part of internships sometimes is that they're not paid.
Yeah.
And in this climate, when a student can go work at Target part-time for a good wage or not get paid when they need, that's an issue as well. The other thing here in New Hampshire, so many of our businesses are small businesses, and so an internship program takes some infrastructure, right? So there's support needed there that they might not have to have an effective internship program. We're working with small businesses on that, but it's another challenge for our smaller businesses in the state.
Could there be a fund that bigger businesses could contribute to that will give a stipend to the people who go to smaller businesses that can't get the salary? And I can see that as an opportunity, not that the small business can actually pay the intern anything, but they can get a grant money so they can afford to do it.
There could be, I suppose.
We have to go after more money.
If I might offer, credit Commissioner Caswell for having some foresight. For a number of years, he's talked about the need for three-sided structure to this that includes higher education, state policymakers, and business and industry at the same table to problem solve these kinds of issues. Chancellor Prevetscher and I both meet regularly with Commissioner Caswell as part of his Council of Partner Agencies. I do think that likewise, Chancellor Provencher and I both are connected to the Business and Industry Association. So I think we have the right players. We just need to find the table where we can sit down and problem solve. I don't know if this is something that we would want to unilaterally suggest is the right strategy to ask the legislature to put together a fund for this. I think that conversation with partners from business and industry and with BEA might be a good starting point for framing what might work.
Senator Lang.
So again, the way I read number 7 wasn't about internships. It was more about, when I owned my business, I read a great book. It was not the big that eat the little, it was the fast that eat the slow, right? Meaning that you gotta be nimble, you gotta be able to move, or you're gonna get overtaken. And so the way I read this was the ability for the university system to be nimble, to work with our New Hampshire employers, to be able to see what are the needs of New Hampshire employers right now and developing things. I can know that it may be a 5-year cycle and then you're moving on to something else because the industry's changed, or 10-year cycle and the industry's changed. So, I think it's important to work with the business leaders. BIA is a great one, but they're also got a huge umbrella. But things like the hospitality industry and tourism industry in New Hampshire, which is so critical to what we need and what those employers in those areas need. I know I chair Ways and Means. We do gaming, and gaming industry is desperate for getting trained dealers and trained servers in their charitable gaming facilities. So again, I read this as being that I think it's important that the university system or the community college system engage with those. And I'm going to call them more granular than BIA or BEA, is that the Hospitality Association or the Tourism Association, there's a Manufacturers Association. There's industries that if you bring them in, they'll tell you this is what we need. And they know, right, for the workforce, what's needed and what's lacking in the people that are coming into the workforce now that need to be strengthened. That may provide some opportunities for you guys. So I guess I would encourage you to be a little more granular and go to those industry-specific associations and say, we want to work with you guys to help you with your workforce. What can we do and what can we provide, and do a lot more granular work.
No disagreement with you on that point. I think we're both connected to New Hampshire Life Sciences, both connected to Army, both connected in more granular ways, but at some level just looking for where are we missing the opportunities, and to some degree hoping that BIA and BEA may help us find those places where we're missing.
Only comment I'll make is the higher up the chain you get, the more delayed the information is, right?
Yeah.
So if you're talking to the hospitality industry, they know what's going on in their industry last week, right? Versus BIA may not get that information for another 6 months by the time it's rolled up in the SUM report, right? And so the idea of again, engaging with the more granular, especially the industries in New Hampshire that are key to our economic success, right? And engaging with those, the hospitality industry, the tourism industry, those kind of things, marine industry, right? The lakes, Lake Winnipesaukee, Lake Winnisquam, Squam Lake, right? They all have what kind of programs might work and help those industries get workers that can come work there and keep New Hampshire's economic.
Absolutely agree 100%, Senator Lang. This is a good example, though, of the difference between the community college system and the university system. So if an industry or an employer needs something tomorrow, the community college system is more able to deliver on that. Our almost all of our colleges within the University of New Hampshire and at Keene Plymouth have advisory boards from people in business saying, okay, let's think about what do you need for curriculum 4 years from now? What kind of skills are you going to need to help develop the curriculum? So there are our curriculum's thinking a little further ahead, while the community college system is able. I noticed Chancellor Rubenstein jot down. You must have mentioned something about the gaming industry, and that is where I sit. That's a perfect example of something that the community college system is here to do. Anyway, so I think if I could speak for the Chancellor, we can't, in my opinion, this can't be one and done. We need to set up a process. How do we get more granular? And those CEDARs, those regional economic development, the regions, might be a way for us to be intentional so it continues in perpetuity and it's not one and done. Public higher ed needs to be part of the landscape, so.
Go ahead, Representative.
This is a quick note. When I faced this problem on the North Shore, and I was chairman of the North Shore Chamber, I realized the chambers do show and tell. The government people don't have time, so I formed the North Shore Alliance for Economic Development on my campus. And I had politicians, I had bankers, anyone with a self-interest, lawyers, meet and actually do economic development work based around my office. And with you two in the same place, you'd be an ideal place to do something. Form your own organization. They'll come because they want to get together and do real, what needs, well, anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
If I may, Madam Chair, I'll add one more point, that we're facing a math problem in this country. This year, I think 4.2 million people will reach age 65. We'll have about 4 million high school graduates, and that will be true for the next several years. The number of people, and it's not that the workforce begins at 18 and ends at 65 for most of us, but the reality is that we're no longer replacing as rapidly as we once did. And we've got to figure out how to fit talent, find talent everywhere, develop talent everywhere, and fit talent where it's needed throughout the state. As one of the older states in the nation, we face that problem more acutely than other parts of the country, and we've got to be better at solving that math problem.
Any more questions from the members? All set? Anything else you want to tell us?
Just thank you for your time. I think the Chancellor and I feel pretty passionate about this work, and so we're delighted to take a little bit of your time this afternoon.
Well, you have your work cut out for you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
I thank you very much for coming in today and going through the points which are in the quarterly report. I'm looking at the task force as a total, that report back from March. There are short-term initiatives and there's some long-term recommendations. Some of those long-term recommendations are going to take a while to get there. However, I think it's important that this study committee address some of those, or at least have some discussion regarding, I'm looking at the first one. I could go through them all, but the first one and the last one are excellent. But this one says, analyze the physical assets and program utilization across both systems. You're doing it with your, I'll call them the central offices. You're coming together over at NHTI. But where are we in terms of all these assets between the 7 community colleges and the university system's 3 main branches? I'm not talking Manchester now or Concord. So where are we? Are there any capital costs or fiscal assets which, you know, maybe we could better utilize in terms of maybe inviting industry in or putting on the market? Because all we're going to do is, you know, have deferred maintenance up the wing, and that's going to drive everything up too. So
We are, so the university system is very much focused on that right now. We are not working with the community college system on evaluating footprint. We have sold buildings, we've demolished buildings, we're getting out of leased space. We're now looking each of the campuses looked at space utilization. Now we're looking system-wide. How else can we leverage those assets? We know the footprint needs to shrink as enrollment declines. We have not yet started conversations with the community college system about, we need to get our house in order, I guess is where I'm sitting right now.
Far be it from me to correct Chancellor Provencher, but in fact, they have worked with us, and that's the basis for relocating the system office to Farnham Hall on the NHTI campus. We have sold some smaller properties. We are in the process of figuring out better uses or having conversations about some of our facilities. As you know, our programs are very local. We're in every region of the state because that's where we serve. And in that regard, as opposed to a system level conversation, each campus leadership team president is taking a look at the physical plant that they have to figure out what makes sense for the future. NHTI has 3 residence halls. One of those is currently being leased to another entity that can make better use of it, generates revenue for NHTI. We are looking across our system at where we might make better use. I will offer also, as we, I think, said in other situations, there may be state agencies. When I hear Commissioner Arlinghouse talk about his 12 bucket buildings, there may be state agencies that are not well housed that we could partner with. Our Littleton facility at White Mountains Community Colleges houses an Office of New Hampshire Employment Security, as an example. Several of our campuses now have made space available for Head Start programs. We're currently leasing space in our Berlin campus of White Mountains to Boys and Girls Club of Central New Hampshire to provide childcare in that setting. So we are looking at all of our spaces against community needs, against better use of those facilities than we might have for them.
May I just follow up that?
No.
That's good conversation. I would like to, if we could, in the near future, maybe at another meeting, be looking at these physical assets which we have and how they're being utilized, whether it be down in Keene where the community college is on the same campus, or, what we're doing in Manchester with the Manchester plant there with the medical research and all that. This is an area where I'd like to know where we're going with these capital costs and what areas are we looking at building, and do we need to be building, or should we be renovating, or should we just be selling off? Or if Madam Chair, if we could have something come back to us, and that is one of the recommendations, in fact, the top long-term recommendation we have here in this report. I'd like to start looking down at some of these recommendations here and seeing, I think this is where we need to be going. I'm also looking at the last one right here, which talks about we're in the biennium budget right now. And establishes, well, let's have a 2-year look at, let's have a 4-year look at, a 6-year plan. Where are we going in terms of prioritizing needs which are going to be out 6 years from now? That's all. I know the trustees look at this stuff. However, where we as a responsibility here in this study committee need to be, I think, also looking at that in terms of how are we going to communicate to our legislative bodies which take care of some of the finances here. For example, Mark's already mentioned about the concurrent dual enrollment program, and we see that as a wonderful way to get kids into this system, learning trades and getting this experience. I can do it at the college level and staying in this state. But the budget request comes in at at $3 million, or 3.5 or 3.25, and we're knocking it down to 2.5. Is that really short-sightedness, or is that just based upon what's available and that's all we got? But I'd like to be making decisions on the priority of the system in a long-range plan rather on singular programs. And maybe when somebody comes into the program, oh, I love that program, that's what we're going to fund. Is that the top priority from you for our looking at the biennium budget? This is an important area. Madam Clerk, there's a lot of good recommendations in here. I think we need to start looking at these long-term recommendations as well.
They could easily ask for a long-term plan,
Well, they're here in this report.
When are you going to do what? What are the priorities? Where do you want to start? And
Well,
start here and
they're
then that
started.
follows.
Yeah. But, on those fiscal assets, I think that's one way we can start, because I know you've got CTEs involved in some of that. You've got community college system, on Keene State. We've got real housing problems up in Plymouth for our master's program and beyond, even for kids. So I'd like to have, and we're deferring maintenance. So I'd like to have more information on our fiscal assets.
Okay. You got that, right?
Duly noted.
Anything else?
Just one more remark. You got to raise the salary offered in your ad for the president of Nashua Community College. It's the average salary of a dean. And I know I've had some calls from friends in the community college network saying that I can't apply for that because it's not higher than what I'm doing now. I know this is not your fault. This is New Hampshire, on the cheap, but just a comment. And I think it would do the legislature well if you were able to offer a market salary for that position.
Got to remember that our system gets fewer dollars from the state than any other system in the country. So, okay.
Did you have anything that you wanted? Any wishes for the next time?
So, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd be interested in maybe talking to a high school principal on
Okay.
how it relates to the students, the 10th, 12th, 11th, and 12th graders we were talking about, is what they see is do they even know about the fact that we have this automatic enrollment process, and what are they doing to get it out to their students, and just see, again, from the principal's position, the high school principal's position, what do they see as limitations of helping them get our students into the higher education and
We
get
talked about.
so we're talking about number 5, right? So you identify other stakeholders.
Yeah, right,
So I'd love to see a high school principal come in and chat with us.
okay,
I know the Kearsarge principal's asked me to come and chat with him, so I'm sure I can maybe talk him into coming down.
sure,
And
Hello,
maybe a
couple.
Winnisquam, maybe a Winnisquam principal I can talk to.
okay,
And see if they'd be interested in coming down. And specifically, I want to focus on the area of post-secondary, of the community college and the college system, and how they're interacting and how they're getting information to get a different perspective from a different level of people.
did you have your wish?
Pardon me?
Did you have a wish, something that you would like to know by the next time, the stakeholder that you'd like to hear from?
No, I think the ec development plan for how the community colleges fit in is a good one.
Do you have enough homework?
I do, Madam Chair, but if I may make one comment, please. Representative Burton did not make his statement in the form of a question, but I would still like to respond. We have been fortunate within the resources we have to attract very talented leadership to our colleges. And although I'm sure we lose in a search some candidates for whom that level of compensation will be a barrier, I don't think it precludes us finding very talented people. And I would look at the panel sitting in front of me who are not drawn to serve in the legislature by the salary. They're drawn to service. And for leadership at community colleges, that's often true. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be equitably and appropriately compensated, but we have the benefit of people who care about the mission and who will come to deliver quality for their students because of that.
You got that?
I'm all set.
Madam Chair, I just say that one of the problems you have is Lucille's shoes are really hard to fill. She was one of the most highly respected presidents in the country.
Any other suggestions for future stakeholders that we would like to hear from?
When's the next quarterly report due, Kathy?
Next report is due this
Yeah.
January.
Quarterly?
Oh, that report, yeah.
Could it be a quarter from February 28th?
You're not going by the year, like January to that?
This February, so the next one is due June, right?
Does May suffice?
The next report quarter in June or July?
May would be good, because we don't have to come in June.
Okay. May is fine. I have no problem with May, if you can get it put together. Okay,
It is.
Roughly, Madam Chair, we're looking at a Monday sometime in May. We'll just look at the calendar and see what it looks like going forward. Understanding the Senate's going to be neck deep in our budget.
does anybody have a calendar? We can set a tentative date.
Sure.
I never bring my calendar.
May 19th, is that,
May 19th?
so third Monday in May?
In the afternoon? How about tentatively May 19? Is the afternoon a good time for you, or would you prefer the morning?
There's a BFA meeting.
Okay,
Well, I know that we
May
do
19th in the afternoon,
have
Madam
CT Advisory Council meetings on Mondays, but I don't know if there's one scheduled that.
well, let's put it down and then we'll
Let's
see
put
what
the
happens. We
May
can always,
19th.
yeah.
May
At
19th in the afternoon?
1
Okay.
PM. Okay,
So May 19th in the afternoon,
1 p.m.
1 o'clock.
tentatively, then we'll double check and see what other committees have been scheduled for that same time.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Appleby, do you have anything you want to say or add? You're happy that way?
Perfect.
Well, I don't hear anything else. So unless somebody has anything else to say, then we can adjourn the meeting.
Move to
All
adjourn.
those in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
I'm happy to, principals, the principals.